Hogwarts Legacy has come out of the gate with some of the biggest sales numbers of any game in the history of the industry. It is beating Elden Ring by leaps and bounds, according to some reports. We're going to get to some of those details in just a bit and tell you just how much we suspect that Hogwarts Legacy is going to make at the end of the day. All of this despite a boycott, quote unquote, by a bunch of social media cyber fascists that have been bullying J.K. Rowling and this game for the better part of the last year. It seems to have worked brilliantly, just simply not in the direction that they had hoped. And now that we are at this point, and the Warner Brothers earnings call is only about 10 days away, now on February 23rd of 2023, we'll be covering it here live on Valiant Renegade. It seems like David Zaslav and company, for sure at this point, have a direction on where they need to take a reboot of the Harry Potter franchise into cinemas. And if they haven't already figured it out, I'm going to help them right now. Renegade Online. Well, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's great to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video that may not yet be subscribed, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that notification bell, hit the like button, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. According to reports from GamesIndustry.biz, Hogwarts Legacy is the biggest Harry Potter game launch of all time, and the physical sales are up over 80% from last year's big fantasy game, Elden Ring. Now, just how big was Elden Ring back in 2022? I had to go back and dig up the numbers, and they were stunning. In the first 17 days, Elden Ring dropped 12 million total sales onto the retail market. And just how big was Elden Ring? Well, The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, 10 million sales in 1 month. The Division, 10 million users in 3 months. GTA 4, 10 million in 3.5 months. Diablo 3, 10 million sales in 6 months. Borderlands 3, 10 million sales in 8 months. God of War 2018, 10 million in 13 months. GTA Trilogy Remastered, 10 million in 15 months. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, 10 million in 20 months. Borderlands 2, 10 million in just under 2 years. Resident Evil, 10 million in just under 4 years. Now, as time has gone on, more and more video games have engaged in pre-sales over the last decade. Of course, this tends to load the box up front more than as time goes on. But from what it looks like right now, from the reports that we're getting out of the UK, Harry Potter is already past the 10 million mark, and it's only been about a week at this point since it launched on the PS5 with the deluxe edition on Tuesday. And if that's the case, Hogwarts Legacy is set to demolish previous records. We might be looking at somewhere close to 20 million units sold within just a couple of months, if not less. And just how much less than 2 months? Well, it might be significantly. We might be talking about 2 weeks for this game to reach 20 million units sold. Again, go back to this article. Physical sales up 80% over last year's big fantasy game, Elden Ring. Now, granted, this is just in the United Kingdom alone, but let's pretend for a moment that this does extrapolate perfectly over entire global sales. That means that Hogwarts Legacy, this new game from the wizarding world of Harry Potter and Warner Brothers, is going to breach 20 million global units sold in 17 days. From the article, it's the biggest launch for any Harry Potter game ever, with sales 64% higher than the previous best, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. That's the Sorcerer's Stone for those of us here in the US, from 2001. In fact, the biggest week for a Harry Potter game wasn't a launch week at all. It was the second week of the Philosopher's Stone due to the hype around the movie. Even compared to that week, Hogwarts Legacy was still bigger by 2%. Now, to be clear, there are some very big differences between today and 2001 when that first game launched. The article covered part of that. The other part of it, of course, is the fact that games these days have far more engagement when it comes to pre-sales, and that has largely to do with the fact of massive exclusive promotional tie-ins and commercial licensing between companies like Sony with the PlayStation 5 and Warner Brothers game studios that make the Hogwarts Legacy game. PlayStation 5 users got it earlier than most people, with deluxe editions getting a $20 per copy premium on them. So more than likely, the first week's sales are going to include all of those big pre-sales. We should see a fairly significant drop-off into the second week and the third week and so on. But banking this much early on is a huge win for Warner Brothers and for Sony. If the sales do indeed strike that 20 million copy mark within less than a month, we're talking about a game that has released and within 30 days has produced nearly $1.5 billion in retail sales. And that is just if everybody bought the basic edition. By the way, this result is even more impressive when you consider this is only for physical media sales. Hogwarts Legacy would have received a substantial number of digital downloads. That data will come later this week, whereas the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone from 2001 had no digital sales back in 2001. Of course, at that point, there were no digital downloads for games. That is only a more recent phenomenon as major console manufacturers like Microsoft with their Xbox, Sony with their PlayStation, and Nintendo with their Switch have tried to bypass the retail level, charging the same price to customers for direct downloads, basically giving them a higher profit margin. Now, I would not be at all surprised to see an official announcement from Warner Brothers on the sales of this game in its totality, both physical media and digital downloads. Look, I even tried to go out and buy a physical media copy of the game this past weekend. I went to 3 different game stores and retail locations, could not find a single one, had to settle to download the deluxe edition, and I was happy to turn over the $79.95 to do it. But we will see some numbers coming from Warner Brothers very soon because the Warner Brothers Discovery earnings call featuring one Mr. David Zaslav is just about 10 days away, slated to come on February 23rd after the market close. We will be covering that earnings call live right here on Valiant Renegade. Do not miss it because that is a segment that will be probably very much heralded during that call is the success of the video game division of that company with Hogwarts Legacy. I expect to hear David Zaslav doing the happy dance all around that boardroom table. And speaking of David Zaslav, from previous earnings calls, he has made no bones about the fact that he wants to, quote, work with J.K. again on rebuilding the Harry Potter franchise. We have discussed some of these earnings call statements from Zaslav and J.B. Perrette at Warner Media before. We have discussed rumors from WDW Pro of that Park Place that Harry Potter, just like the DC franchise, is being looked at very fervently for a big reboot. Now, some questions came early on whether or not they would try to reboot the books themselves, recast the original characters of, say, Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And of course, that is going to be met with a great deal of trepidation by audiences and fans out there. But what Warner Brothers has on their hands right now, for certain, is a gold mine with Hogwarts Legacy. See, one of the mistakes that Warner Brothers really made over time is thinking that just having a bunch of people with wands and casting magic on one another was enough to get people back to theaters. They found out how bad that doesn't work with the Fantastic Beasts franchises. Never mind the fact of what happened with Johnny Depp. Cast that aside for a second. The real magic of the wizarding world of Harry Potter is found at Hogwarts Castle, with the heroes and the main characters being students of that school. And that's something that Hogwarts Legacy is absolutely bearing out to be 100% accurate. The more people saw the cinematics, the more people saw the promotions for this game, the more people saw what they were actually building and creating at the game studios that produced this magnificent piece of artwork, the more people wanted to buy it. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And of course, the social media acolytes out there that decided to turn this into an LGBTQ issue only serve to help sell perhaps millions of more copies of this game. I, for one, was not slated to buy a PlayStation 5 until later on this year. I was waiting for other games like Diablo 4 and Final Fantasy 16, which, by the way, maybe that's the next battleground, quite frankly, as Final Fantasy 16 and Square has come under fire for making Final Fantasy 16 too white. Let's hope these same trolls and crazies on the internet will do for Final Fantasy 16 what they did for Hogwarts Legacy. People just want a good experience. They want escapism. They want a good story. And great stories do things like transcend time. And that's the most important thing when it comes to driving revenue for these companies. And I cannot wait to watch this earnings call. I hope you will all join us Thursday, February 23rd at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that. I can't wait to hear what David Zaslav and company has to say.